Welcome to the Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you for being with us. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, is the largest federally funded food aid program in the U.S. The program has been in place in some form since 1939. Last year, it saw sweeping changes with President Donald Trump's signing of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, limiting access to the support for families facing food insecurity. The changes that have already taken effect include new work requirements for certain people and restrictions on eligibility for some non-citizens, including refugees and people who have been granted asylum. Following the implementation of these new rules, analysis of U.S. Department of Agriculture and state data shows that 4.5 million fewer people are enrolled in SNAP today than were enrolled last summer. Meanwhile, the changes to SNAP contained within the One Big Beautiful Bill Act have not yet fully taken effect. Later this year, funding and benefit calculation adjustments will take hold, and in 2027, SNAP changes for people on Medicaid will roll out. Those adjustments could put added strain on state budgets as well as local food banks and other organizations helping people who lose food assistance. So what does all of this mean for people who rely on SNAP to help put food on the table? Joining me to talk this through, in studio today, we have Rachel Cahill. She's visiting fellow at the Center for Community Solutions, which is an independent, nonpartisan think tank and research organization which focuses on improving health, social, and economic conditions in Ohio. Rachel, welcome to the Sound of Ideas.
Thanks for having me.
Joining us by video, we have John Honeck, Executive Director of the Ohio Job and Family Services Directors Association. Hello, John.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Thanks for having you with us. We appreciate it. If you would like to join the conversation, you can call us at 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org or message us on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. Now, Rachel, can you tell us about some of the major changes that went into effect for work requirements for SNAP that we saw earlier this year, and who's feeling the impact of that?
Sure. Well, I'm really glad we're talking about this topic because it is affecting actually everyone in our community right now. With food prices going up and with budgets being squeezed for everyone, the loss of these food dollars in our local economy is a pretty big deal. And of course, it's a loss for those families who are losing the benefits. So there's a number of changes, as you mentioned, that went into effect. Work requirements are one of them. We already have had work requirements in Ohio and SNAP for a very long time, so I don't want to give the impression that the work requirements themselves are new. What's new is that it expanded who is subject to them. So older adults, all the way up to age 65, are now subject to them, as well as some parents with teenagers, whereas before households with children were entirely excluded from those requirements. So that is one factor that's impacting the loss of eligibility. But actually a bigger factor that's changed as part of this bill is the way that states have to pay for the benefits in a new way. And that is causing a lot of pressure on counties to be even more precise and even more accurate with their calculations. And so they're requiring more and more documentation. And that's actually a bigger driver of people losing the benefits. So we've found that 50,000 children have lost SNAP in Ohio since the bill passed. That is not because those children lost eligibility. Children are not subject to work requirements, but those families have been under increasing pressure to verify their eligibility in more difficult ways, and that's causing the biggest loss in enrollment.
What kind of verification is being required now that wasn't required before?
Yeah, so we've always required things like proof of income, proof of your expenses, like what you pay for rent, what you pay for childcare. Now, though, counties who administer the program in Ohio are required to get the benefit calculation so precise that they're really afraid of making mistakes, because if they make the slightest mistake in a calculation, then the state is going to be responsible for paying for a portion of the benefits for the first time ever. So that means those counties are under a lot of pressure too. They might ask for 4 pay stubs instead of 2 pay stubs. They might ask for that information more frequently. And if the family can't produce those documents quickly enough, the application gets automatically denied and you have to start over and try again to apply.
Are there any changes coming between this year? We know that there are some changes that are going to take effect in 2027, but what can we expect in the rest of this year?
Yeah, so eligibility changes are already baked in. So the changes for legally present non-citizens like refugee and asylees, that has already gone into effect. The changes in work requirements have already gone into effect. So it's not actually eligibility that's going to change. It's the way the program is paid for that's about to change. So starting in October, in just a couple of months, we are going to have to pay as a state and at the county level a higher percentage of the administrative costs. For years, it's been split 50-50 between the federal government and the state. Now the state and federal component, now the state and county component is 75% and the federal is only 25%. So that's like the first whammies counties are having to put up, and John can speak to this, many millions more dollars just to keep the program afloat, just to run it as they were running it, while being asked to do more to verify eligibility. So that's kind of the first thing that's about to change. And then the much bigger thing we're worried about is starting next October, so of 2027, the state will have to pay, as much as $300 to $400 million a year in the benefit amount if we can't get our precision, our accuracy of the benefit calculation to a very, very low threshold. So they're setting a very high accuracy standard. And that's the first time that the federal government won't fully pay for the cost of SNAP benefits.
Now, John, your members of your organization oversee SNAP administration across the state. Can you tell us what county job and family service agencies are doing as they're trying to implement these changes so that they are in compliance and hopefully can avoid some of those pitfalls?
Yeah, and so I appreciate the background from Rachel. I think it's been a very challenging year for our members. A lot of the federal changes are new, and there's also been the issue of having the state reprogramming the Ohio benefit system, which is the IT system that all the counties are working in. And so those changes have had to sort of catch up with all the policy changes, numerous policy changes. And as Rachel has said, there's increasing pressure on the state to get the accuracy right down to the last dollar. The message from the state has been spend even more time on SNAP interviews, which are kind of the first step in that application process. And our members, have been under-resourced really for the last 15 years. The states cut the budget back in the 09-10 recession. We're having the administrative cut take place now, as Rachel mentioned. That'll cost about $51 million across the state in terms of lost federal revenue to counties. Just mentioned to your listeners, Cuyahoga County will lose about $10 million in federal match over a one-year period. So that's very serious loss of revenue. And our members are having to make some tough decisions, especially in the metro areas, about how to deal with that loss of funding. There was a small amount of state money. There was $10 million additional from the state, but that wasn't enough to cover the entire gap. And so Cuyahoga County and other counties are being put in a position of, do they put in place a hiring freeze? Do they eventually need to let people go? How do they make operational changes? What do they need to do to implement all these changes? And it's a very challenging time. Rachel also mentioned the issue of verifications. The SNAP program basically builds a household budget, looking at expenses and income. Right at the same time, the state is no longer paying for a verification system called the Work Number, which was used by a lot of big national employers, and switched to a different system. Well, unfortunately, that means a lot of employers weren't in that, and we're having to manually ask for verifications from a client and send out a paper form in some cases and ask for verification. So a lot of things happening at once. Trying to educate clients on what they need to do to stay connected with the program, but definitely is a kind of a season of change for us.
Rachel, to give us some context here, can you tell us what the intention behind these changes are? Are we seeing a lot of waste and fraud in the SNAP system?
Thanks for that question. I would want to start by saying SNAP is an incredible program. It's a powerful program. It has been for almost 60 years. It is the best way we have as a country to keep our neighbors from going hungry. So I think as a foundation, we have to remember that it is a highly effective and efficient program that has a very high standard of integrity and high standard of accuracy, and it has for many years. So the changes that came as part of HR 1 were a cost-saving measure. It was a big bill that did a lot of things. It needed to pay for many of those things with cuts. And so the biggest two cuts came to SNAP and Medicaid. It was, they're big programs, and so there are a lot of resources, and in some ways SNAP was kind of seen as a piggy bank that could pay for other things. So people along the different ideological spectrum may have different perspectives on what the right size of the SNAP program is, but from the families who I know and who use it in our community, they are hardworking people. They are people whose jobs are not not earning enough to be able to fully feed their family, and they're often working 2-3 jobs. We also have a lot of older adults, people with disabilities, and children. In fact, more than 80% of the folks that get SNAP are older adults, people with disabilities, and children. So the discussion about waste and fraud is in some ways a cover, but also in some ways is something that our state has always taken seriously. So if you see a headline of someone who got in trouble for misusing the program, it's because they got caught. There's a really robust system that the counties really are responsible for that does ensure that those benefits are spent responsibly. So I think it's important to just also ground with what the benefit is we're talking about. We're talking about $6 a day on average to buy basic groceries. No one is living an elaborate lifestyle with $6 a day in groceries, and we have those work requirements already. So it is a really strong program. It's an important program to protect. And when I see 50,000 children falling off of that program, those children still need to eat, and the community is going to need to absorb it, whether it is, they're going to school hungry or they are showing up at the local food pantry. The community still needs to help those kids get food. And so we need SNAP to be strong so that it's not falling out into all other parts of our society.
If you're just joining us here on The Sound of Ideas, we are talking about changes that are taking effect related to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, which is the largest federally funded food aid program in the country. If you want to be a part of this conversation, you can call us at 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org, and you can send us a message on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. Now, Rachel just mentioned food banks potentially absorbing some of the shortfalls here that are happening because of the changes in SNAP. We'll bring in another guest to this conversation now. Janet Newcomer is the Executive Director of Feeding Medina County. That is a food pantry. It's the largest food pantry in the Medina area. Janet, welcome to The Sound of Ideas.
Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for having me.
We appreciate you being here with us. Janet, we'd like to ask you what you're seeing and hearing from people who come to you for assistance about the changes to SNAP.
Well, the first thing that we're noticing is so far, end of July and so far into August, we have seen an increase in the number of families that are coming to us for food. Just most recently, last week at the Medina County Fairgrounds, which is our largest distribution of the month. We do 4 direct drive-through distributions each month. This one is the largest. We saw a 20% increase in the number of families coming to us and the number of people that we were serving. So for us, that is a very significant increase. And just anecdotally, talking with the neighbors as they're going through the line for food, there were several families that told us that they were there because they were no longer eligible to receive SNAP benefits. So we're on the front lines, and we're seeing it happening, real people, real families impacted by these changes in eligibility requirements.
We've got an email now in from David B. in Cleveland Heights. David writes, "We need to remember that in addition to those who need the food aid, the financial impact is also on small and medium-sized grocers and stores which have come to count on the income from the recipients. It's all part of the economic downturn in our communities at the state and federal levels." David B. in Cleveland Heights, thank you for that email. Rachel, I'll turn to you and ask you, we mentioned a bit about this at the beginning, but what the broader implications of reduction in SNAP benefits might mean here in Ohio.
Yeah, it's a great point to be made. SNAP is a huge economic driver. And the loss of eligibility that we've seen, the enrollment decline, has led to about $20 million less in SNAP benefits coming into our local grocery stores between what we had in July 2025 until the most recent numbers that we have. And so, yeah, that's a loss for all of our grocery stores. And for those retailers, even if it's just 5 or 10% of their gross receipts, that's going to really affect how they can staff that store, what they can produce in that store. And then it has a ripple effect into the broader food economy, right? The farmers, the bottlers, the manufacturers, we have a really robust food economy in Ohio, and SNAP is an important part of that. So even though the initial shock is being felt by the families, it is going to have this ripple effect. The other ripple effect it's going to have is also in the way that it shows up in our school meals program, because SNAP eligibility drives school meals eligibility. So we can talk about that more, but we are seeing the grocery stores are, it's almost like first we said it's going to be the families, then it's going to be the grocery stores, then it's going to be the schools. So it's really a matter of time before the rollout continues to be felt.
John, SNAP Ed, that's a nutrition and obesity prevention program. That will also end this year. Do you know of any other local or statewide nutrition resources that people could connect to that would fill that gap? Are there other places that people can go to fill the need that might be left if they are being closed out of SNAP benefits?
Well, that's a good question. I thought that was, an unfortunate decision that was made, at the national level. There are resources available, OSU Extension. Sometimes, local school districts have resources available, community groups, and there, maybe individual, food pantries, food banks that also have access to resources. But, as Rachel said, it's, the education is part of it, but also it's concerning just having folks potentially not being able to access enough calories on a daily basis. And so it's something that we're concerned about. We're trying to make sure that our members are reaching out to their community organizations, food banks, and others that can put people in touch with other means of support. But make no mistake about it, it's as SNAP goes away, there's no sort of community resource that can fill that entire gap. So it is very concerning.
Janet, your organization, Feeding Medina County, is it prepared to take on additional demand with the shortfalls that we're seeing coming in SNAP?
Well, that's a really good question. We faced a very similar circumstance last year during the government shutdown and then the cessation of SNAP benefits when we saw our numbers just absolutely explode. So being aware of what policy implications, policy changes, how they can impact us, we're working right now to increase the amount of food that we have on hand. We are reaching out to some of our donors, some of our supporters, some of our food donors to let them know that we are seeing this uptick in demand. We anticipate as we move into the fall that these numbers are only going to continue to increase. So it's a juggling act between reaching out to everyone and then also looking at our numbers, what we're seeing in our emergency pantry, what we're seeing at each weekly distribution. It is definitely a challenge. Feeding Medina County is very fortunate that the community has supported us, and we need them to continue to do that because we are the resource that people in our county turn to when nothing else is available.
If you're just joining us here on The Sound of Ideas, we are talking about changes that are taking effect to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, the federally funded aid program for food here in the United States. If you want to be a part of this conversation, the number to call is 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org or send us a message on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. We have a call now from Mark in Shaker Heights. Mark, welcome to the Sound of Ideas. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I guess I'm a little surprised by the conversation because, you know, Ohio has 15 members of Congress. 10 of them are Republicans. All of them supported this bill. They all were behind it. And I guess, and, you know, looking at the state, Republicans dominate all the houses of the legislature. They dominate the governor's office. Republicans have been uniformly supportive of these changes. And so I guess I'm wondering, you know, have your guests reached out to people like David Joyce, who's running for Congress, or Matt Miller, people who were firmly behind this change, who thought it was a really good idea, and to ask them whether what's happening is what they expected, is this what they wanted? I guess I'm just surprised, given how Republican the state is and how many members of Congress Ohio has who supported this bill.
Thanks for sharing the thought, Mark. Rachel, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I certainly can't speak for what any member of Congress personally believes on any provision within H.R. 1. Yes, the caller is correct that we do have a delegation that broadly supported, the Republicans broadly did support this. It was a partisan bill. I will say now is a moment where there is some bipartisan opportunity to address parts of the fallout that we're seeing now that the effects are really being felt. You know, it was a big bill that had a lot of things in it, and you'll always hear members of Congress say, well, you know, I really supported parts of it. I maybe didn't support other things, but I had to do a yes or, you know, an up or down vote. So I think now is the time to be in touch. I think individuals can be calling their member of Congress, but to be in touch and saying, you know, Congress still has time to change elements of this. There was actually just a couple weeks ago a discussion in the Senate Agriculture Committee. There is an attempt to make a delay in when the cost shift goes into effect so that states have more time to prepare for the paying for the cost of the benefits, the portion that's going to come onto states. So there is a discussion going on right now, and our members of Congress could absolutely support the bipartisan request that governors from across the country are asking for, which is for a 2-year delay of the cost shift. That would give states and counties more time to adjust to the changes, to not do anything irresponsible and push people off who should still be eligible, but to take the time to really make sure the program is continuing to strengthen, benefits are accurately issued, without a big bill landing in state legislatures that really puts the program into crisis. So that would be what I'd say is the moment of opportunity we have now for our members of Congress to consider.
And Rachel, is it accurate?
Stephanie, can I add to that?
Please, go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think, you know, we certainly reached out to members of Congress while the bill was being debated to kind of let them know what the impact would be. I think there was a lot of pressure, you know, put on from leadership onto to members to vote for the bill. A lot of pressure from the White House. I think some members may have not fully understood the implications of it. But we certainly, as Rachel said, there is that opportunity now, and we certainly have also been reaching out to try to make people understand that, you know, things can be changed. There's an opportunity to walk back some of these more burdensome requirements, and really, you know, it's important for people to, you know, kind of make Congress aware what are the real world impacts of some of these decisions. Because I think as the bill was going through, it was big, it was complex. I don't know that, you know, every member was really focused on all of the details, and it moved very quickly. So. But now we have a chance to try to correct that.
And John, I'll stay with you for a moment. I think the analysis shows that in order to continue with SNAP the way it is now, if everything does move forward as planned, as is laid out in H.R. 1, that it would take states 2 to 3 times more the amount of money in order to continue to pay for it at this level once that burden would fully shift to the states. Are you concerned about that? Is it, you know, Rachel mentioned the possibility of pushing that off for maybe 2 years, that shift in financing there. Even if there is a 2-year push off, is that something that the counties could continue to operate at the same level if that does completely come to full fruition?
Well, again, there are two cost shifts. The administrative cost shift, which will take place in about a month, really on October 1st. That is going to be very challenging for counties. That will hit our bottom line. As I said, $51 million at least across the state of Ohio, $10 million for Cuyahoga County alone, which has the largest SNAP caseload in the entire state. In terms of the benefit cost shift, for the first time in the history of the program, there would be a potential cost share of the benefits for a state if the what's called the SNAP payment error rate doesn't go below 6%. That was a number, the 6% threshold, I think was chosen kind of deliberately by Congress, knowing that very few states were underneath that threshold. In the most recent round of numbers, only about 8 states were underneath that. Most of them had very, very small populations. Ohio right now is at 6.76%. And what the error rate is basically just a measurement of overpayments or underpayments to SNAP household. It is not a measure of fraud. There's a error sort of built into the measurement too, because they're doing a sample. But yes, I'm concerned about that benefit cost share unnecessarily raising questions about the future of the program. Now, with that said, I want all of your listeners to understand, state of Ohio had over a $2 billion budget surplus at the end of June. And there should be no question whatsoever that even if Ohio is in a position of having to pay some of the benefits, that we are financially able to do that, and that this is a foundational program that supports about 1.3 million Ohioans. So we're trying to get the error rate down. We're making good progress, but I think we need to have some calm, rational discussions about the future of the program.
Rachel, I want to ask you about another aspect of SNAP benefits. Households that receive SNAP benefits might also receive utility assistance for services like electric and internet, and there are some changes to that under this new law. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this is one of those real subterranean things that doesn't get a lot of attention but can cause real headaches. So there's a basic concept in eligibility programs like this is that if you qualify for one, then it makes sense to not do eligibility all over again for another program. So for many years, if people got heating and cooling assistance, which is called HEAP, that program would essentially confer a deduction for SNAP. So you didn't have to reprove that you paid for utilities if you already got a grant saying this helps you pay for utilities. That was one of many small changes that Congress made so that those families that get that HEAP benefit, they still have to reprove that they have utility bills. And if they aren't able to reprove that every single time they recertify their benefits or every time they have a change of address, they lose that deduction. And that sounds like a small accounting problem, but that can be the difference of a couple $100s in your food benefit each month because you didn't get a utility bill counted in your benefit. Then you're calling the county trying to get it fixed. You're waiting on hold for hours. And, and that's the difference of, having breakfast next week for the kids or being able to pay for that lunch that they're otherwise not getting in the summertime from schools. So I'm thankful that schools are just now coming back into session and schools are starting to fill a big gap for families with the cost of food. But those little things, those little verifications of utilities can be the difference of $100 in a family's budget.
Janet, when we talk about filling gaps for people who are in need, who are experiencing food insecurity, do you think there are things that people misunderstand about the role of food banks during a situation like this, a time like this, when we do see people who are falling off of receiving these benefits who have been used to getting those benefits?
That's another great question. Thank you. In Medina County, we definitely face that. People look at Medina County, and I get this comment all the time. You mean there's people who don't have enough to eat in Medina County? Economically, we're one of the more vibrant counties in northeastern Ohio. We have a lower unemployment rate, and we do have 12% of our population, 12% of our residents are food insecure. There is definitely a lot of misconceptions out there about the people who come to food programs for one reason or another. People come to us when they don't have enough to eat and they are out of resources. And we take pride in being able to meet them where they are and to be able to assist them. we hear all kinds of stories about people's circumstances. Someone who retired and through no fault of their own, their pension was dramatically reduced. Someone who's going through economic hardship due to the loss of a job through no fault of their own. Families who are dealing with high medical bills. Even something as simple as a car repair bill, given the high cost of fuel today, inflation, what that's done to the cost of groceries. We find there are a lot of people who I refer to them as, they're living on the edge. And it's a very short step from being able to manage all your bills and not need food assistance to suddenly not being able to manage your bills and needing food assistance. We know that that's why our numbers are going up. We have people who have worked very hard all their lives, have done everything the way, we want people to do. And suddenly they find themselves in a circumstance where they need food assistance. Unfortunately, we are here to help them. There is an amazing network of food programs around northeastern Ohio, the Greater Cleveland Food Bank, the Akron-Canton Regional Food Bank, of which Feeding Medina County is a member, and numerous small pantries throughout Medina County, Cuyahoga County, Summit County, this whole entire area. There is a network of organizations similar to Feeding Medina County, and given the numbers that we all see, it takes all of us to feed the community.
John, I want to go back for a moment to the conversation we were having about new work requirements or expanded work requirements for people who are going to be subject to work requirements in order to receive those Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP benefits. Are there resources for them that are being provided at the county level for people who maybe need to update their resume or need help finding a place to work or volunteer so that they can meet that eligibility requirement?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that. Thank you. So each county has a SNAP employment and training program that can provide help with resumes and getting someone ready to go back into the labor force if they've been out of the labor force for a while. It's a voluntary program. I think, part of the issue here with, especially with extending the work requirement to older adults, you're often getting into a population that's got some chronic conditions. They may have been out of the labor force for a while. They may have been very, very surprised to get a notice saying that, we thought you aged out, but now you're back into this work requirement situation, and they may have been very, very surprised to do that. Now, if they're a caregiver, there are other exemptions that they can avail themselves of if they have certain situations going on. But I think part of the issue there is just some folks that may have been on their way out of the labor force because they are well into their 60s, now being pulled back in what's become not such a good labor market anymore, with not a lot of hiring. But yes, there are resources available through SNAP employment and training programs, and we would encourage folks to have a discussion with the county about how to use those resources.
We've got an email now in from Jen that I'll share as we wrap up this part of the conversation today. Jen writes, I wanted to let folks know that I am involved with a national nonprofit called Lasagna Love. The volunteers provide a pan of lasagna for needy families. Local social service agencies provide information for those in need, and they sign up to request it. The volunteer can select an area locally for delivery and is given matches to provide a filling meal. I feel if everyone can do something to help those in need in any way, it makes a huge difference. These families are struggling and just need a hand in any way when times are hard. I know what my help is doing and where it's going, as well as making a small investment in the community. Jennifer, thank you for sharing that. Again, that organization is called Lasagna Love. We appreciate you sharing that with us. I want to thank our panel for being with us for this conversation today. In studio, Rachel Cahill, visiting fellow at the Center for Community Solutions. Rachel, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Joining us on video, we have John Honick, Executive Director of the Ohio Job and Family Services Directors Association. John, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
And Janet Newcomer, Executive Director of Feeding Medina County in Medina. Janet, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
We'll take a quick break now, and when we come back, we'll learn about One World Day, which is a celebration of diversity and unity at the same time. That's happening this Sunday at the Cleveland Cultural Gardens. This is The Sound of Ideas. I'm Stephanie Haney. We'll be right back. You're with The Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you for staying with us. In a few days, tens of thousands of people will gather at the Cleveland Cultural Gardens to celebrate One World Day. This will be the 80th year for the annual festival, which celebrates global diversity, cultural heritage, and unity among the many cultural groups we have here in the Northeast Ohio area. It's hosted by the Cleveland Cultural Gardens Federation, which currently consists of 38 individual gardens honoring distinct nationalities, cared for by groups of people who celebrate those cultures. The gardens, while beautiful to look at, are also full of carefully curated historical symbolism, which will be on full display at the festival on Sunday, August 30th. This year's activities kick off at 11 a.m. with a naturalization ceremony that's being held at the Centennial Peace Plaza. That leads into a parade which has blossomed into the cornerstone of the day's activities, which will be scattered throughout the gardens as people celebrate their various heritages. Joining me today to talk about the meaning interlaced throughout the gardens and the spirit behind One World Day, including what's new with various gardens this year and what's to come in the future, we have with us Sheila Crawford, who is chair of One World Day and head delegate of the Irish Cultural Garden. Sheila, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. We also have with us Obie Shelton, executive director of the African American Cultural Garden. Obie, welcome.
Glad to be here.
And with us as well is Tom Turkley, Executive Director of the Cleveland Cultural Gardens Federation. Tom, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Happy to have you back. Now, if you want to join this conversation, you can call us at 866-578-0903. You can also email us at soi@ideastream.org or message us on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. Now, Tom, the Cleveland Cultural Gardens have been around for 110 years, playing host to One World Day since 1946. That was shortly after World War II. So tell us about how this celebration of culture here in Northeast Ohio has grown into what it is today, with 30 to 35,000 people expected to come and honor diversity this weekend in Cleveland.
Sure. Originally, for many years, One World Day was basically hosted by an individual garden, and a lot of the other gardens participated. So it was very low key at that time. And then about 15 years ago, we decided to open it up to all the gardens and have all the gardens participate throughout the day. And since then, it's just kept on growing with attendance. And yeah, now we've reached over 30,000 people coming down.
It's going to be a beautiful display, a lot of unity here in Northeast Ohio. Now, Sheila, you're the chair of One World Day this year. You've grown up tending to the Irish Cultural Garden, which you now manage. What's it been like for you, seeing the gardens turn 100 in 2016 and then this evolve over the years into what it is?
Well, it's a great celebration and a great accomplishment. And I think all the nationality groups in Cleveland have really united together. And our motto is peace through mutual understanding. So a good part of what we do is trying to build bridges and get us to know each other better and get along with each other. So this One World Day celebration really is the manifestation of that whole idea. And having it grown is just so fulfilling. It's wonderful.
It kicks off with a naturalization ceremony. That's at 11 a.m. on Sunday. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that's a beautiful piece of this because people who are coming to America to embrace us and our lifestyle and our ideas about what life should be like get to become citizens in the cultural gardens, surrounded by all the other nationalities of the world. And they are welcoming these new people to come and embracing them to share their love of America like everybody who has come here and become naturalized citizens have.
And Obie, you've been managing the African American Cultural Garden since 2022. So you've got several years under your belt now of being involved with One World Day. What does it mean to you to be involved in this festival?
Well, it's great because it's such a metaphor for what the world should be, because we all, we live in the same world. And in this case, we're all on one strip of land, and we have to, on this one day, cooperate, and we all want to express ourselves, but we have to, make some deals, right? And we have to like step back and say, no, you go, and you can express yourself, and we have to make some adjustments. And so, to me, I like that this is the way the world should be.
Let's talk about that for a moment, and I'll address this question to the full panel. If you are watching us on YouTube or on the Ohio channel, you just saw a little glimpse of the African American Cultural Garden, which we'll see more of here in just a moment. But for the full panel, I want to talk about the difficult time that we're in right now on a national scale. It is a challenging time to celebrate diversity and culture, especially immigration. We're seeing attempts to remove immigrants here in Ohio on temporary protective status. That's something that's happening to our neighbors in Springfield right now. The federal government is attacking diversity, equity, inclusion programs on a wide scale. Why is it important to each of you? I'll start with Tom, then go to Obi, then to Sheila, to continue to celebrate our region's communities and diversity right now, including those of immigrants?
Sure. Well, the main function of the gardens is to highlight the contributions of those communities to the world and to America specifically. So I think what we tried to do is highlight the commonalities that everyone shares and the uniqueness that each culture brings to America and to our society, and the importance of the diversity that we have in this country. And that is like a building block of who we are today.
Mm-hmm. Obi, for you?
Yeah. Again, I think it says it reminds us that people come from all over the world, and they come to America to live together under a rule of law. And so for me, this reminds us that that's the way it should be. And it reminds us that all these people came from Europe and from Asia and from Africa and all these other places. And it should, especially with the, when we have the swearing in of the new citizens, should remind us that, we all come from different places, and we can all live here, and we can live in peace.
Mm-hmm. Sheila, how about for you?
I think part of the importance of the cultural gardens would be the programs that we have, because that allows us access to each other. It pulls us together, whether they're meetings or social occasions, and especially One World Day. We have the Parade of Nations, Parade of Flags, where last year we had about 1,000 people in that parade, and each marches by with their country flag and really symbolizes the importance of each individual country. And by bringing us together, we can talk and share ideas and work together on projects. And I think that really helps move ahead this whole idea of getting to know each other better and understanding each other.
Mm. The appreciation for diversity and unity and just different cultures has certainly evolved in the United States over time. Obi, I want to talk to you about the African American Gardens, which is in the middle of adding to what's been in place since 2015. Construction projected to be completed in December. Looking forward to that. The journey to bringing this garden to life started in 1961. We'll see some video of the garden now. If you are joining us on the Ohio channel or on YouTube, you'll be able to see that. Obi, tell us about the garden just getting kicked off in 1961 and the journey to today.
Yes, a councilman, Leo Jackson, said that he felt that the African American population, and back then it was known as the Negro population, needed to be represented with these gardens. Now, people who are watching this on the screen are seeing that part on the left. There was an upper portion that was finished in 2015. What you're looking at now is the part that has yet to be done, and we started construction about 3 months ago, and that kind of curious-looking black thing is going to be kind of the center of it. It represents the present, because the garden kind of represents its architecture, and it's abstracted. On the top of the hill, it's the past, talking about the door of no return and enslavement and African Americans' entrance here. And then you move to the present, where that's why you saw the Little Dipper with a star on it, because that was the north that attracted people during the migration, North Star that attracted people here for opportunity. And so African Americans in Cleveland, their families all have a story of how they got here. And then it pushes, there's a long stretch where there's water. And then at Martin Luther King, there's going to be a fountain. So the fountain represents the future. So you have this long stretch from the present to the future, and hopefully that's going to stimulate some contemplation like, okay, how do we get from where we are now to the future, and there's hope in the future. So that's that's what we're planning to build, and that's what we'll be telling people about on Sunday.
Okay. And Sheila, we'll see some drone video now of the Irish Cultural Garden. This is actually a video that we'll see courtesy of Red Rose Cinema of wedding photos being taken in the garden. As we see that, can you tell us what people will expect at the Irish Cultural Garden on Sunday?
Yes, well, as you can see, our garden is in the shape of the Celtic cross, which is really important to the Irish culture. And we're starting at 10 o'clock with the Jerry Quinn Irish Radio Show. It'll be live broadcast from our garden from 10 to 12. And the band Evergreen will be playing during that presentation and then after. The Murphy Irish Dancers will perform traditional Irish dancing at 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock. And then we have the Irish Pub connected to our garden where you could purchase harp and Guinness. And we have an Irish singer, John Kilkenny, is going to play in the Irish Pub for great entertainment. So it'll be a wonderful day. We have a food truck with food, and we're also having Irish baked goods. There'll be some soda bread and scones and all sorts of things you can purchase.
The Irish Cultural Garden is very near and dear to my heart. If you couldn't guess, those were my wedding photos being taken there last September. We had our wedding in the Italian Cultural Garden. We took some photos in the Irish Cultural Garden after that. The Polk family, big on the Irish for sure. So that was a special moment for us. Tom, tell us a bit more about one of the newest gardens and what we can experience there as we celebrate diversity and culture here at the One World Day.
Well, actually, one of the newest ones, finishing up construction as we speak, is the Scottish Garden. They're excited to be on board. It's been in the planning for a long time now, but luckily they've finally got phase one of theirs in and should be ready for One World Day. And Sheila might be able to better talk about what they have planned during One World Day for the Scottish Garden.
Well, the Scottish Garden will have bagpipes and Scottish dancers and Scottish shortbread, of course, and lots of information about the history of Scotland. And our first phase, which is going in now, it'll be ready for Sunday, is our rock garden. And Scotland is full of beautiful rock gardens and flowers and whatever. So we're really happy that first part is going to be done for Sunday.
Just the flowers going in this Thursday and Friday, as I understand it.
Yes.
So very fresh, very, very fresh. Obi, tell us about what's planned at the African American Cultural Garden.
Well, because we're limited on our space, we usually have a whole lot of live entertainment, but a lot of it is fenced off because we've begun our construction. We have a little bit of space, but we're going to have Cleveland's line dance king, Robert Johnson, who's going to give lessons on some urban line dancing, because a lot of people see it, but they're ashamed to get on the steps. Well, that's not quite the urban line dancing that you're going to see, but boots on the ground and wobble. We're going to be doing that, and so that's going to be in that 50-foot space that we have on the side there. But if you at 2:30 and at 4 o'clock, he's going to give classes, and you can dance to you can get in there.
All right. That's very, very good for us to know. Tom, there are 38 gardens now, but there are 15 more gardens on the way. Tell us about the importance of bringing new gardens in and new culturals in and what we can expect there.
It's very exciting and very important to the gardens to show the growth. The 15 gardens is adding to our diversity. Originally, the gardens 110 years ago, a lot of the original gardens were of European heritage because those were basically the first groups that immigrated to this area and were able to establish a garden. But, over the decades, Cleveland and Northeast Ohio has added a lot of diversity. So we're super excited about all these new communities that are coming on board and wanting to establish a garden.
Yeah, can you tell us a few of the ones that we can expect soon?
Sure. Just this past summer, we've approved Puerto Rican and Dominican gardens. We have gardens from Iran, Iraq, Jordan, Kazakhstan, Peru, Mexico. So it's a great, diverse group of communities that are coming on board.
Okay. And you can see the gardens that are participating and the cultures this weekend at One World Day. That kicks off at 11 a.m., wraps up at 6 p.m. I want to thank our participants for being with us here. Sheila Crawford, Chair of One World Day, Head Delegate of the Irish Cultural Garden. Sheila, thank you.
You're welcome.
Obi Shelton, Executive Director of the African American Cultural Garden. Thank you, Obi.
Thank you.
And Tom Turkley, Executive Director of the Cleveland Cultural Gardens Federation. Tom, thanks very much.
Thank you.